Alright guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in this little video I'll be going over 3 basic functions that you need to know on a multimeter. Now these functions are, when you're working in automotive, these functions are used on a day-to-day basis. So these functions are your voltage, your ohms, and your amps. And hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to interpret these readings that are on your multimeter a little bit better. Before we actually get to the multimeter portion, I just want to give you guys a little a recap on what voltage, ohms, and amps actually is. Let's begin with voltage. Voltage is best defined as an electrical pressure in a circuit which moves current through the circuit to the load to produce work. A load can be anything from a light bulb to an electrical motor. An example of voltage is, think of voltage as water waiting at a faucet to be turned on. Now let's go to amperage. The best way I can describe amperage or current is how fast the current is moving in a circuit. So think of water flowing out of a faucet. The more you open the tap, the faster the rate of flow of the water. Now let's think of resistance, or ohms. The best way I can describe resistance in a circuit is something that slows or stops current flow. Think back to the taps. They are a form of resistance for water flowing from the faucet. That we refreshed our understanding of volts, amps, and resistance, we can go to the multimeter and measure voltage at the battery. But before we do that, I'd like to bring up another little image. So in this image it gives a very good illustration of what voltage, amperage, and resistance actually is. So if you take volts, volts pushes the amps. Volts is the electrical pressure. So you need voltage in order to push the amps. Now the amps will do the work. But if you have resistance, ohms, into the system, the amps will not be able to work properly, and that's where you could have motors that aren't turning fast enough, where you can also have lights that aren't bright enough. You can have a lot of little electrical issues like that. And that's basically what volts, ohms, and amps are. Now if you look at this illustration, like I just said, you see that voltage, you need voltage to push the amperage through the circuit, and then you need you don't want resistance unwanted resistance, I should say, in a circuit. So unwanted resistance would be corrosion in a wire or a broken wire. Wanted resistance in a circuit is an electrical load, like a light bulb or a motor itself. Now that is wanted resistance. Now we are finished with the little recap, and now we're going to go over to the multimeter, and I have a little setup, and we're going to be going through these 3 basic functions on a multimeter. Alright guys, so here's the little setup that I have, and I just have a small 12 volt battery and my multimeter, and we're just going to use a basic incandescent light bulb. And with these 3 things I'll be able to show you voltage, amperage, and resistance. So I'm going to get started, and the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to measure the voltage of the battery. Now when you're measuring voltage of the battery, you got to understand that you're actually measuring the difference of potential between 2 points that are not connected. That is what you're doing when you're actually measuring voltage. Now what I mean by that is that if you would measure from here to here, there's an electrical, from your negative to your positive, there's an electrical potential that's actually into this battery, and that's what your voltage is. Now amperage is work. It's what's going to end up turning on, like this light bulb. It's not the voltage that turns on this light bulb, it's the amperage that turns on this light bulb. And it's very important to understand that. You cannot have voltage turn on a component, you need amperage in order to turn on the component. Now with that being said, if we go on resistance, resistance is what's actually going to slow down the amperage. Now I'll get to that after. We're going to get to the measuring of the voltage first. So just remember that when you're measuring voltage is that you're actually measuring the difference in potential between 2 points. Okay, so it's very simple. Take your multimeter, set it up on the voltage scale, which on mine is right here. I can't see that. So it's right here, and mine actually does the AC and the DC volts on the same scale. So all I have to do is just press my my function button and it changes it. So red on red and black on black, or red on positive and black on negative. So as you can see, I have a difference, potential difference of 12.52 volts. And that's basically how you would measure voltage. Now, for resistance, we're going to switch it to the resistance scale. Now the resistance scale, as you can see right here, it looks like a little horseshoe. And that's the ohm symbol for omega. And that's what the resistance symbol looks like. So we can actually take and we can actually measure the resistance of a light bulb. Now remember, when the multimeter actually takes and it measures resistance, it actually takes and it sends a small amount of voltage through the light bulb, and it measures what comes out, and that's what basically gives you your resistance value. Actually, I'll use this guy. Love this guy. This is a nice little tool. It's great for doing in-series testing. Black and red. And then we're just going to connect it on my pins on the inside. I don't know if you guys can see my pins. Probably not. Oh yeah, there we go. Kind of. Anyway, we're going to take and we're going to connect it on my pins. And then we're going to take and we're going to measure the resistance of the light bulb itself. Now I'm on red and black, so I'm going to come down here onto my red and black. And for that, I can actually just use these two. And I'm already on resistance. Now resistance isn't polarity sensitive, so you can actually plug it up whichever way you want. And we're going to check. And we're going to get my resistance. So as you guys can see, I have 0.8 ohms of resistance in this light. You could actually take and you could calculate the amount of amperage that this light should put out with the voltage and the amperage with the drawing that was up on the screen earlier, the triangle of Ohm's law. And you could calculate that without even putting the multimeter in series. But we're not gonna do that. We're gonna actually use the multimeter in the amp setting, and we're gonna measure our amperage with that. Now, to measure amperage, you guys, there's two ways that you guys can do it. One, you guys can put the multimeter in series, or two, you can get yourself an amp clamp that reads in millivolts. So basically, the millivolt reading that you guys get from the amp clamp will be transmitted into the multimeter, and that you just have to multiply the conversion here in order to get your amperage reading. So first I'll do it both ways for you guys just so you guys can see. And we're going to take our light bulb, and this will actually power up the light bulb. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to move it to amps. Then we're going to take our positive lead and we're going to bring it over to our amp scale. Because if you guys don't do that, you guys are actually going to blow your fuse inside your multimeter. And that's not something that you want to do. And then we're going to take the multimeter and we're going to plug it. I'm going to take my positive lead from here to here. Oh, there we go. And 4.68 amps on that small little light. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm going to bring this up because it's very, very bright. Sorry about that. Really wasn't expecting it to be so bright. So 4.66 amps. Alright, so let's take and turn that off before it burns my banner. And that's the amperage. So 4.68 amps. Now we're gonna take, and I'm actually gonna remove this. We're gonna go up to my voltage again. I can put it on millivolts if I want, but it doesn't really change anything. And I'm gonna go with my amp clamp, as you can see here. Okay. Now that being done, my amp clamp's right here. Okay. Now we're gonna take and we are going to plug up this light again. Like I said, sorry about the brightness, guys. Really not my intention to blind you. And now we can take the amp clamp and we can put it around either negative or positive. We will zero it. Oh, sorry, zero that before. Okay, and see, this one's saying that we have 5 amps going through it. So basically, you just have to take your decimal and move it over 1, and it'll give you your reading. So this one's saying that I have 5 amps, where when I was plugged up directly in series with it, it was actually saying that I had 4.5 amps. So a little bit different reading, but it's to be expected from switching from one system to another. But yeah, so that's basically amps, voltage, and ohms, and how to use your multimeter to read them and how to interpret them. Now hopefully this you guys enjoyed this little video, and if you did, please like, subscribe, comment. So thank you very much, and you guys have a good day.